She lay stiff beside me, back curved away, like a wall I'd been trying to climb for years. No tension in her voice, no frustration, just that smooth, flat tone that comes when someone's already made peace with pushing you out. Don't touch me tonight. It wasn't the first time, but this time, something in her voice sealed it. Final. Like a judge reading a sentence that didn't need appeal. I didn't answer. I just stared up at the ceiling fan, watching it spin slow in the dark, the blades humming out the last hours of a marriage already hollowed out. She shifted once, pulling the sheet tighter, didn't ask if I was okay, didn't ask anything. By the time she rolled over to check her phone, I was already in the kitchen snapping shut the last zipper on my carry-on. It was still dark out. The old floor creaked under my step like it always had, but she didn't stir. I left the ring in the drawer next to the receipts she'd never looked at. If you're still listening and any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, hit like and subscribe. Most people just listen in silence, but that one click tells the team these stories matter. The mug I used every morning was clean and upside down on the drying rack. I didn't take it, just poured the coffee, left the pot half full like always, and stood for a second in that familiar silence. Her car keys were on the hook. The dog was asleep in the laundry room. Everything looked like a morning I might have lived 1,000 times. Except this time, I didn't kiss her forehead or ask if she wanted anything from the store. I walked out with one bag and my passport. No note, no warning. The porch light clicked off behind me, and she didn't even notice. Not then, not yet. The morning sun cut through the curtains in the motel room, sharp and indifferent. I sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, holding a cup of burnt coffee that tasted like cardboard. No toothbrush, no change of clothes, just what I'd packed and the silence I'd chosen. My phone buzzed against the table. Did you take the car? She hadn't said my name. Just the car. That told me everything. Possessions first, emotions later. I turned the phone face down. No reply. An hour passed. Another buzz. Where are you? Still no name. No real concern. Just the vague alarm of someone who suddenly realized a piece of the furniture moved itself. I sat by the window and watched a man walk his dog across the parking lot. The dog trotted ahead like it knew where it was going. I didn't. By 3:16 p.m., she tried again. Are you okay? That one made me pause. A crack, maybe, or a test. I thought about writing back something simple. I'm fine. But even that felt like playing a role I'd resigned from. Instead, I powered the phone off, let it rest, with the charger still plugged in, a black screen in a darkening room. When it buzzed back to life at 7:42, 5 messages had stacked up. The last one read, "Come home," like I'd gone for a walk, like it was still mine, like she hadn't said what she said, hadn't rolled away night after night with that cold certainty, hadn't left me holding my breath in the dark. No apology, no panic, just a gentle command from someone who believed I was orbiting her gravity. She still thought this was a protest, a moody drive to clear my head, that I'd sulk in a diner maybe and drag my feet back before bedtime. She didn't know yet. There was no home left, and just a place I once lived, and a woman who thought silence was a safe bet. She'd learned soon enough what silence sounds like when it finally turns into distance. 3 days in, and the first voice message came through, not from her, but from Maureen, a friend of hers who never liked me much to begin with. Hey, oh, I know this is awkward, but she's saying you're not well, that you just left, that she's scared. I stared at the message for a while before deleting it. No reply. By the end of the week, my name had started drifting through people like pollen, annoying, seasonal, hard to pin down. One of our old neighbors sent me a screenshot, her Facebook page, a blurry photo of a candle and a glass of wine, captioned with a quote in cursive script. Sometimes people just change. 87 likes, 14 comments, most of them women she used to gossip about in whispers. Stay strong, girl. Some men can't handle real love. One even added a heart and the word grieving, like I'd died. In a way, I had, just not for the reason she wanted them to believe. I wasn't surprised. She always hated loose ends, always needed to be the one explaining things, so she told them what she needed to believe, that I was unraveling, that maybe I'd lost my job, that maybe there was someone else, a younger woman or some old flame that had resurfaced. One friend apparently asked, was he ever really happy? And she said, I thought he was, but I guess not. That guess carried her through coffee chats, church pews, Pilates sessions. It let her stay the puzzled wife, the one who lit candles and talked about sudden changes, the one who didn't roll away night after night with cold skin and eyes that never turned to meet mine. Meanwhile, I moved through cities without checking in, rented under another name, paid cash for things I used to charge. I bought a secondhand coat in a town 2 states over, and the woman at the register smiled like I belonged. It was the first time I'd felt that in years. I didn't defend myself. Not once. No posts, no calls, no mutual explanations to ease her image of herself. Let her fill in the blanks. Let her build whatever version made her sleep at night. I wasn't erasing her. I was just refusing to narrate for her anymore. She logged into the joint account and saw a message she didn't recognize. Access restricted. Please contact your institution. I know the look she must have had. Eyebrows drawn tight, jaw locked, that same face she used to make when the Wi-Fi went out or her delivery was late. Only this wasn't a glitch. This was design. Months in the making. She tried again. Different device, the same block. Then the cards, first the black one, then the platinum, started declining. Grocery store, gas pump, app store. That's when the text turned. This is cruel. You're punishing me. I trusted you. I read each message once, no replies. She didn't understand yet. This wasn't revenge. This was restraint with structure. Then the call started. Not to me, but around me. My brother first. She left a voicemail, her tone high and brittle. Is he okay? Is this a midlife thing? He didn't answer. We'd already talked weeks ago over coffee in his garage. Then my best friend, Jake. She messaged his wife. I'm just trying to understand. They sent her nothing but silence. She even called my old manager thinking maybe I'd snapped and gone off the rails. He thanked her for her concern, then politely declined to comment. Another conversation I'd already had, quietly and clean. The final move was almost impressive. She tried to retain a lawyer, a sharp one, expensive, one we'd joked about over dinner once after a friend's ugly divorce, but when she showed up at his office, she got 2 lines. I've already been consulted on the matter. Conflict of interest. She must have stared at him, confused, waiting for the punchline. 6 weeks ago, I'd walked into that office with documents, dates, and a clear head. This is not a divorce yet, I said, but I'm preparing for distance. I want every step to be legal, silent, and complete. She had always thought I was the emotional one, the romantic, the forgiver, and maybe I was for a while, but now I was just a name behind firewalls she couldn't climb, and every key she thought she had didn't fit anymore. It started with a blurry photo. One of her friends, Trina I think, sent it to her late at night, the kind of woman who always accidentally runs into people, then forwards the proof like she's breaking news. The picture wasn't flattering, overexposed, grainy. I was in jeans and a windbreaker, holding a paper bag with groceries, smiling, actually smiling. Not that thin, practiced smile I wore at dinners with her friends, a real one. She must have stared at that photo longer than she wanted to, because then came the zoom. She noticed the bag first, the logo on the side, a small specialty store, organic produce, hand-packed cheese, locally milled flour. She didn't recognize the name, which meant it wasn't one of ours, not from the old life. Then her eyes went to my hand. No ring, not even the pale groove where it used to sit. There's no silence like the one that follows certainty. She called the store the next morning, using that falsely sweet tone she saves for waiters and front desk clerks. Hi, is there a man named Daniel who works there? Tall, dark hair, kind of quiet? The girl on the phone hesitated. Sorry, I don't think so. No one by that name here. That's when the spiral started. She called 3 more businesses in that strip mall, then a coffee shop across the street. She started going through her saved contacts, trying every mutual thread we had, old clients, my cousin's wife, the guy who ran our dog's training classes 2 summers ago. Nothing. Then she tried the number I'd used for the last 8 years. It rang once, then clicked to the automated message. This number is no longer in service. The panic settled into her chest like wet cement. I hadn't disappeared. That was the cruelest part. I was still walking under streetlights, laughing in broad daylight, holding fruit and bread, and living in full view. But she couldn't touch it, couldn't get inside it. She saw the outline of me, the movement, the smile, and suddenly understood what it means to be cut off, not by force, but by complete removal of access. I was no longer her husband. I was the story someone else had to tell her. She spotted him near the hors d'oeuvres table, sipping sparkling water like he didn't want to be there. I knew she'd recognize him. Greg was always the type you remember, tall, patient, a little too observant to be fully comfortable. We'd worked side by side for years. He'd met her once at a company holiday dinner, and she'd barely looked at him. Now here she was, clutching a champagne flute like a weapon and cutting through the crowd like he owed her answers. "Greg," she said, sharper than she meant to. "Can I talk to you?" He blinked, clearly weighing the risk, then nodded once and stepped to the side. "I just need to ask, did he say anything about leaving? About why?" Greg sighed, deep, heavy, looked over his shoulder like he hoped someone would interrupt. No one did. "He didn't leave you," Greg said quietly. "He freed himself." She scoffed. "Excuse me?" Greg didn't flinch. "We used to sit in the break room, just us. Lunches got quiet toward the end. Then one day, out of nowhere, he said, 'If the coldness doesn't stop, I'm gone.' Not loud, just gone." She tried to speak, but nothing came. Her mouth opened, then closed again. He wasn't angry. He was calm. That's how I knew he meant it. Greg reached into his jacket and pulled out a small white card. No name. Just a black QR code printed clean and sharp in the center. "Maybe he left something for you there," he said, handing it to her. She took it like it might burn her fingers. "What is this?" Greg gave a small, almost sympathetic shrug. "Closure, maybe, or the part you refused to hear when he was still in the house." Then he walked away, disappearing into a cluster of donors and gala gowns, leaving her standing there in silence, holding a clue she didn't know how to read. She looked down at the card again, scanned the code with trembling hands. She was starting to understand. This hadn't been spontaneous. Someone else knew before she did. Because I hadn't disappeared, I just stopped asking for permission. She sat in her car in the charity event's parking lot, still wearing heels, still holding the card like it had teeth. The screen of her phone lit her face in a cold blue glow as she scanned the code. It opened to a drive folder, untitled, just a list, entry 1 through entry 27. Each file was a short clip, 2 minutes, sometimes less. She hesitated before pressing play. The first one opened with me in my old office chair, back when I still lived in that house. Nothing dramatic, just me, looking into the camera with the same even expression I used when reading contracts or paying bills. "January 3rd, I said. She came home late again, said she was tired. I made her coffee. She left it untouched. Click. "January 8th, she said she missed who I used to be. I asked her what she missed. She didn't answer, just changed the subject. Click. "January 14th, she said, 'Don't touch me again tonight.' Her breath hitched in the car. It was like watching a ghost she didn't know she'd killed. Each clip was time-stamped. Quiet. No background music. No dramatics. Just light from the office lamp and my voice, steady and unshaken. In one entry, I talked about folding her laundry, how I noticed she hadn't worn the necklace I gave her in months. In another, I recounted a night we'd ordered Thai food. She ate hers in the bedroom, door half closed, as I sat alone in the kitchen. There was one where I paused mid-sentence, looked off to the side, and smiled sadly. Tonight, she said, I'm not the man she married. I didn't disagree. That man used to hope. Her hands were trembling now. She hit play on another, hoping for a crack in the voice, some emotion she could point to and say, see, he was fragile, he was unstable, he was unfair. But there was nothing but calm, stillness, a man tracking his own vanishing with clinical precision. She wasn't in the videos, not really. Just her absence, her dismissals, her decisions recorded without malice. And still, there was no blame. Only one line near the end stung the most. Some people think silence is safety, that it's kinder than cruelty, but silence can kill a home quieter than rage ever could. She slammed the laptop shut. The grief rose up hot and sudden, but it didn't belong to her, not really. It was mourning a man she hadn't noticed disappearing because she'd never listened until the recordings played it back to her. By then, there was no one left to argue with, only echoes. She burst into the lawyer's office like she expected the room to rearrange itself out of sympathy. Hair still pinned from the gala, blouse wrinkled, eyes wild. I need to reverse some asset transfers, she said, planting her hands on the edge of the desk. He tricked me. He must have forged something. The paralegal didn't flinch. She'd seen worse, just tapped her keyboard a few times and looked to the screen. You'll need to speak with Mr. Holloway directly. He's in conference room B. They walked her down the hall. The room smelled like stale paper and filtered coffee. Her heels clicked across the floor as she paced, arms folded, waiting to undo what she assumed was a mistake, a misunderstanding. When Holloway came in, he carried a slim folder and no expression. Let's begin, he said, sliding it across the table. Inside were 12 documents, digital printouts, all marked with her initials, dated across the last 18 months. A living trust, vehicle title transfers, property amendments, beneficiary reassignments. That's not possible, she said. He couldn't. She stopped. Her own handwriting stared back at her. I didn't read them, she whispered. I know, Holloway said, voice calm. That's what he was counting on. You signed off each time without asking. They were included in routine documents, insurance updates, tax filings, household accounting. She flipped through them, fingers shaking. The house, his, the car, his, the cabin, his. She looked up. Even the dog? Holloway didn't blink. The registry was updated last fall. You signed the veterinary transfer form. It's in the folder. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just the mechanical gasp of someone realizing too late that every door she thought was locked from the inside had quietly swung shut behind her. She'd thought she was safe because I was still in the house, still making dinner, still paying bills, still smiling in photos when friends asked for one. But I wasn't staying. I was sorting, preparing, and now there wasn't a single signature left she could claim without admitting her own neglect. It hadn't been an ambush. It was paperwork, and she'd signed every exit without reading a word. She stepped into the bookstore just as I was adjusting the mic on the podium. The air smelled like old pages and cedar oil from the display shelves. Snow was melting off her coat, damp patches already forming around her sleeves. I knew she was coming. Word travels fast in small towns. Someone had seen her at the diner down the road, asking too many questions in too short a tone. But I didn't hide. I hadn't come here to vanish. I'd come here to live. She didn't speak right away, just stood there, eyes scanning me like she was trying to recognize something long gone. I let her. My beard was shorter, the lines around my mouth deeper. There was no ring on my finger, no apology in my posture. When our eyes met, I nodded once, nothing more. She took a step closer, clutching the strap of her handbag like it anchored her. I didn't know you were this unhappy. I finished aligning the mic, then turned to her, shrugged. You didn't ask. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You should have told me, she said, voice rising. I'm not a mind reader. I looked at her then, really looked, at the woman who used to laugh in restaurants and fall asleep mid-sentence on the couch. The woman who, over time, stopped asking how my day was, who started scheduling herself out of reach, then blaming me for the silence. I did, I said quietly, just not in the language you chose to hear. She opened her mouth, closed it. Behind her, someone from the bookstore staff was arranging chairs. People were starting to arrive for the reading, locals with coffees and scarves, chatting softly. They looked past her, not recognizing her face. She didn't belong here, not anymore. She glanced around like she might try again, asked to talk, suggest a walk, anything to rewind the clock. But I was already turning back to the podium. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't unkind. I was fluent in something she never bothered to learn, paying attention when someone stops reaching, and staying gone when the silence finally answers for you. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday, just after the mail carrier had finished his route. Plain. No return address, no handwriting she recognized on the outside. She turned it over 3 times before opening it, like maybe there was a trick to it, a delay, a warning, but it opened easy. Inside was a single piece of cream-colored paper, one line written in my hand. You taught me how to live with silence. I simply learned to use it. No signature. Her hands trembled. The note floated to the table like an afterthought. Beneath it, tucked inside the folded paper, was a flash drive. She plugged it into her laptop like she was diffusing something. The screen blinked once, then opened to a single folder. Before you noticed. Inside, more footage, short, like before. Unlabeled this time. But the scenes were unmistakable. Me cooking dinner while she scrolled her phone in the other room, me waiting at a restaurant table alone, watching the door, me standing outside in the rain with 2 movie tickets, checking my watch, a birthday card, unsigned, a bottle of wine left unopened on an anniversary night. Clips not meant to shame her, just to remind. She clicked through each one, slower and slower, until the last file opened, just a shot of the bedroom hallway. My side of the bed, already made, hers still rumpled, a timestamp in the corner, the morning after she said, "Don't touch me tonight." Then black. She leaned back in her chair, surrounded by the soft hum of nothing, the same kitchen, the same bed, the same dog, now looking at her instead of me when the front door stayed closed, but the silence was different now. It wasn't mine anymore. It was hers, heavy, permanent, echoing, a mirror of the quiet she used to control, now staring back at her, unmoved, uninterested in the explanations. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't broken anything. I hadn't screamed. I had simply documented, waited, and when the time came, I didn't leave to hurt her. I left because I realized silence is an absence. It's the final form of honesty when someone refuses to listen.